if your kids don't go to school, how are they going to know how to deal with bullies? And I'm like, are you kidding me? That is how we're going to prepare them? Send them off somewhere on their own so that they can deal with other children who are bullying them, whether physically, emotionally, or mentally? No.
Welcome to Little by Little Homeschool Podcast, where you'll learn tips and strategies that will empower you to home educate your children. I'm Leigh Nguyen, a homeschool mom of over 12 years, which includes 2 graduates. When I started homeschooling, I was pretty much on my own and was desperate for encouragement and help. My mission is to be a source of encouragement and help to you. Whether you are just beginning your homeschool journey or you're deep into the homeschool lifestyle, Little by Little Homeschool wants to help you stay the course because all the time you are investing into your children is completely worth it. If you're ready to take your homeschool to new levels, keep listening.
Your life, if it's not already, is going to get a little bit crazy these next 2 weeks as we go into the final stretch before Christmas. But I wanted to throw out just a heads up to you that something new is launching towards the end of this month. So don't skip listening to the episodes over the holidays or you're going to miss out because what is launching is brand new and it is a limited time offer. So don't miss out on being able to get in on that. So don't miss listening. Over the years, I have had some really hard conversations in real life, family and friends about homeschooling. But I have also worked one-on-one with hundreds of moms who are either just beginning their homeschool journey or they have been in it for a while or somewhere in between. Today's episode, we're going to talk about the arguments that homeschoolers often get about why they need to send their kids to school. Sometimes these arguments come from family, come from friends, come from strangers. Sometimes they even come from a spouse who isn't quite on board and is questioning things. They might even come from your own mind. It might be your own arguments, your own fear that is holding you back. You may need this list and the rebuttals I'm going to give you over the holiday season as Christmas and New Year's comes. So for those gatherings when you are with people and they're asking you about homeschool, so take some notes, think through this. My best advice is to think through the possible questions, arguments, the conversations you might have, the statements might hear, and then have some type of rehearse what you want to say back to that person so that when that moment comes, you don't kind of flubber, you don't blow your top, and you don't regret afterwards saying what you said or not saying something when you felt you should say something. Honestly, sometimes it's best just to say, I'm sorry you feel that way and walk away. But sometimes we need to have those hard conversations and we need to stand up for ourselves. So today I'm going to give you the top pro school and therefore anti-homeschool arguments, and we're going to debunk them together. My list contains 5 topics. I could probably talk about this for a very long time because there are even more than 5. These are going to be the top ones that you're going to hear when people are saying, oh, you shouldn't homeschool, or oh, you should stop homeschooling. Depends on what situation you find yourself in. These are going to be their go-tos. These are also going to be the go-tos that you are going to think of. You are going to question yourself, whether you are just beginning homeschooling or you have been homeschooling. You will find yourself at times coming to one or more or all of these different topics. And so it's good for you to have a thought in your mind and an opinion and some words to be able to share back to somebody else, and also some words to share to yourself. Some ways to be able to tell yourself, no, you're just believing a lie. You are falling into fear. That is not true. Obviously, always go to Bible verses, to God's word for that. But the first one, you know what it is, and that is socialization. You will hear, well, if they're not in school, how are they going to be socialized? Friends, we don't socialize people. We might socialize our dogs. I had a dog that was very unsocialized. She would bark at every single other dog. We would take her for a walk in our neighborhood we live in now, and my kids would take her for a walk. And if they started walking down one block and saw somebody coming with a dog, they'd turn around and go another way. Our walks were very erratic. If you were to track where we would go, it wasn't seamless at all because we would have to turn. She was just this little 10-pound wet Jack Russell Terrier, and she thought she was top dog. So we socialize our pets, but we don't socialize our children. We teach our children how to function and how to live in the world. That's not socialization. Yes, there are going to be some kids that are going to maybe a little bit more awkward. You might find yourself to be a little bit more awkward. Your husband might be a little bit more awkward. And therefore, they're not going to be as social. Out of my family of five, there are some of us who are way more social and more extroverted. And it's much easier for some of us to have conversations with people than it is for others. And I have found that I work with each one of those kids and help them overcome their maybe natural bent to maybe be a little quote unquote antisocial. So, socialization. To be honest, when you homeschool, you actually have to kind of put the kibosh on how many things you're going to do, right? There are so many options out there. And you could either say, well, I need to socialize my kids. So I'm going to put them into the school and they're going to spend most of their day with children who are born within about 12 months of them and one, maybe two teachers at a time. And that's going to be it. When they get out of school, does that time that they're in school, does that replicate the real world? No, it doesn't at all. Think about the quote unquote socialization that you do on a daily basis, whether you are working outside of the home, working from home, or a homemaker. You spend time with people of all ages, and you have learned to interact with people of all ages and to have compassion and mercy and care and interest in them. And that's what we teach our kids as well. The kids that I see that are homeschooled that are maybe a little, we'll say in quotes, socially awkward, it's just their personality. They might be a computer genius. They might be a musical genius. They just have their gifts are just in a different way. And that's okay. You could have one child that's like that, a little bit more introspective, but is a genius in their own way. And you might have kids who are very social and they are the heart of the party. You go somewhere and everybody knows who they are. Number two, this one sounds crazy, but I have heard this over and over again. Well, if your kids don't go to school, how are they going to know how to deal with bullies? And I'm like, are you kidding me? That is how we're going to prepare them? Send them off somewhere on their own so that they can deal with other children who are bullying them, whether physically, emotionally, or mentally? No. I remember bullies in school. And do I think that that prepared me better for the world and maybe a better person? No. It made me scared. It made me fearful. And our children are also just like that. They're kids. They need us to be able to stand up to them. And the amount of bullying going on in schools, like the whole, anti-bullying and report, whatever the whole, thing the government comes up with, whatever they say they're going to have a war on bullying or something, war on whatever, it never stops it. I think it actually maybe sometimes makes it worse. So I have heard, well, how are they going to deal with bullies? Yeah, there's going to be people in life that are not going to be the easiest to get along with. And as our kids encounter those other children at a co op, in the Sunday school classroom, on the soccer field, we talk them through that. We run them through the possible scenarios and how they can deal with that. So, along with that, I'll hear, well, how are they going to know how to deal with bullies or real life scenarios? Really? If they're out in real life, they run into these real life scenarios and you know how to handle it. Say you're at the grocery store and there is a grumpy person and they're just mad about everywhere you are in the grocery store. Your cart's in the way, or they're mad that your kids are just kind of flitting about and laughing and having fun. That's a real life scenario that you are encountering, and you can walk your kids through how to have grace and maybe just how to get out of that person's way and let them go about their business and to offer some prayers for them. Number three, people will say, well, if your kids are homeschooled, they won't be ready for college. We're going to put a big X on that one. A lot of kids take college courses while they are still enrolled in homeschool. If taking college courses doesn't equip you and getting you ready for college, then I don't know what else will. Now you can do that in public school as well, but I don't think people really realize the level of academics that you have the opportunity to take when you're in homeschool. They think that we are just sitting in a dark corner in our home, probably just sitting there reading the Bible, right? In our jean jumpers and whatever the other stigmas that go along with it. But they say they won't be ready for college. You know what? Many, 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 many homeschoolers are rethinking if college is even necessary. We have stopped and said, We don't have to stay on this hamster wheel, or we don't have to stay on this one track that we just go from preschool to elementary school to middle school to high school to college. We might say, you know what? Hmm, do we have to go on to college? Now, yes, there are some careers where you're going to need to do that. And I would highly recommend and suggest that if you have a high schooler and they say, I want to go to college for engineering. Well, yeah, you have to in order to be able to maybe get a degree that they want to do what they want to do. There are some engineering possibilities that don't require a college education. But overall, I highly suggest taking a gap year. And there's a stigma that surrounds that. I did do an episode all about gap years, so you can find out a little bit more information about that. But is college necessary for everyone? I love when kids take a gap year because it helps them to reprioritize how they want to proceed with the future. It gives them time to think whether they do some type of program or they stay home and work and help out the family. But overall, many are rethinking, is college necessary? To be honest, it's not necessary in a lot of situations. And at the end of 4 years, you have taken 4 years to do that, as well as you have some debt too. The other day, I was talking to my 20-year-old who is an entrepreneur. He owns his own company, and he has been running that, I would say, full time since he was 17. And I said, hey, if you were going to school for business, now I'm not knocking anybody that goes to school for business administration or business or something, but if you want to learn about business, go run a business. Maybe that isn't in their wheelhouse to start a business, but go work for a business. Go work for a small business. Get to know the boss. Get to know what is going on and really see if that's something you want to do. So I said, let's go ahead and take a look. Like, what are the courses that you have to take? And some of them, he was like, some of them might be okay. But he's like, why do I need to go take a gym class? He's like, I go to the gym. I don't need to go take some, water polo or underwater basket weaving type of class. Why do I need to learn about philosophy? He's like, if I want to learn about philosophy, I'm going to do that on my own. Why do I have to do all this other classes and everything? I was like, well, if you want your bachelor's, you got to get a whole well-rounded education. He's like, if I want to do business, I'm either going to do the business or I'm going to go for the business classes. And we took a look at the business classes and I was like, yeah, you have probably written those business classes with the amount that he has learned just by trial and error. So it's not necessary for every single career, but also the the possibilities of where and how you can make an income and supporting a family, supporting yourself and supporting possibly then a spouse and supporting a family. We used to be able to say, well, what do I want to be when I grow up? What do I feel like I want to do? You used to be able to just go into that type of major, get that degree, and then get into that field of study. Now, that is possible, but more and more people are saying, wow, a lot of those aren't really an option anymore. They aren't in high demand. So instead, why don't we say, what are the possibilities for future careers? Things are moving at such an advanced rate with technology that there are a lot of majors you'll go into school for 4 years and those won't even be around. You'll hear this oftentimes, those that are going into kindergarten, the careers that they will do someday, that they will take, the paths they will take, haven't even been invented yet, haven't even been started yet. And so things are moving so fast. I think at sometimes you could maybe start it as a freshman in college, and then by the time you graduate, it's kind of slightly obsolete. So number 4 is you will hear people say, well, they're not properly educated. Well, then I would ask them, what is education? What exactly does that mean? Does that mean grades and tests and metrics and jumping through hoops and doing everything that I'm told to do? Is that education? So really looking at what is education? And I have done some episodes about this. You can scroll back and take a look. There's things about school versus education and all that kind of stuff. And I really, really recommend that you and your husband do some research and think and have some conversations about this so that you know really what are you spending your time on as far as education. Are you just doing school and just doing metrics that you feel like you need to do, or are you really educating your kids? There is no way for your homeschool kids to learn everything. And really, do they need to know everything? All the kids that are in school, they're not learning everything because it's physically impossible to learn everything. And just because remember, the government is the one that runs the school requirements. They tell the schools what they're required to teach and to learn, and in some states, what curriculum to use and all that stuff. Just because the government and the school mandates that children at a certain age learn certain things, it doesn't mean that other things are not important. If they say your child has to learn, and say in high school, algebra 2, and there's only a small percentage of careers that actually use that, is it really going to be helpful? What if instead they took some type of finance course, or they understood economics, or they learned how to file their taxes, whether we want to or not, or they learned how to budget? What is going to set them up for the future with the knowledge, having that basis? Again, they can't know everything. Do I know everything about filing taxes? No, but I can go ahead and do it. And if rules and things change and laws change, I'll then add on to the knowledge that I have. You will do the same too. Now, number 5, this one, this is kind of a hot topic, and it is something that people can get really worked up about. That feelings can be hurt, and it's kind of one to tiptoe around a little bit sometimes, and then other times you just have to flat out kind of say it straight. But the 5th argument that people say your kid should be in school and you should not homeschool is that they are missionaries, basically, in school. They don't put it in those terms. They say, well, how will these other children come to Christ if your child is not there? Now, there are some strong feelings on both sides. And I'm just going to tell you that obviously I kept homeschooling my kids. I did not, and still do not feel strong enough that my kids need to be in school to be missionaries. I went to public school. I grew up in a Christian home. Was I a missionary? Did I share Jesus? Was I salt and light in school? Absolutely not. I hid my faith. I hid that I believed in God. I just tried to fit in. And most of the time I was just kind of a wallflower because I knew that I shouldn't try to fit in too much. But I never spoke up. I didn't talk about my faith. Now, there are some children who are very strong in their faith and don't care and will. And I applaud and absolutely love that. So, who should be the missionaries within the schools? Well, I think the teachers. Some teachers are called to be there, to be a missionary, to be a light to other teachers and to the administration and to the students and the families and parents that they're able to reach. But I'd like to know what 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, going on up through high school is equipped to be a missionary. Now, again, you might have some high schoolers who really are, and I'm not going to say that they are not, but in general, it is very hard for a child to stick up for their faith. Eventually, they're going to be beaten down. Eventually, they're going to maybe, especially with the agendas and things that are running now, it just is going to get harder and harder. And it is hard. It was hard for me back in the 80s and the 90s to speak up. And you might have a similar scenario, similar story as to mine. And do I regret that? Yes. But at that time, I was not equipped. And so us saying, well, I need to send my kids because they need to reach these other children. Well, are your kids out there playing sports and activities and things? They're able to reach those. And, we look at missionaries, and in order to be a missionary, you do a lot of training. Nobody sends a missionary. I'm not going to send my 5 or 6-year-old out to the jungle somewhere or out to a city, inner city somewhere to be a missionary. No, maybe we'll go together. That's different. But when we are just sending them in somewhere on their own, the things that I heard and saw are actually very minor compared to what kids are actually seeing and hearing right now. And so this one just doesn't hold weight for me. And I do have friends in my real life that felt convicted about this and did send their kids to school. And, we'll see. I don't know. I don't know the ins and outs and the details of how much of a missionary they were or anything, but this one's kind of a hard pass for me. And it wasn't enough. It didn't hold enough weight. The research and the praying and the thinking that I did on it didn't hold enough weight for me to send my kids for that. What if? What if they're not a missionary? So I see at this point with my kids, and as they get out into the real world and as they work, they are able then to have conversations. And I hear about it from my boys, especially right now, who are working with pretty much all non-Christians, all non-believers. And they say what they can. And I'm not saying that they are perfect, but they can be salt and light where they are right now. And we've done a lot of equipping over the years. And they're 16, almost 17, and 20. So Those are the top 5 pro-school, anti-homeschool arguments that you will often hear, and I hope that it helps you this holiday season. If you love this podcast, I would love it if you would jump over to Apple, or if you are on Apple, stay there, and leave a 5-star review, or a 5-star rating, and then a quick review, just a sentence or two. Think of it as a Christmas gift for me, but also a Christmas gift to others, because that tells the podcast app, especially Apple, that others will enjoy this. And so other homeschool families can find this as well. All right, friend, as we near into Christmas week, I hope that you have gotten your Christmas shopping done. You have your holiday cheer and joy and peace during this season. Have a blessed day.
Thank you for listening, friend. I'd love to connect with you more. You can find social media links in the show notes and share this episode with a friend who could use a boost to her homeschool. See you back here real soon.